Let me tell you something straight from the heart. If you're over 70, there's one health mistake you absolutely need to quit right now. I've seen it ruin lives. It nearly got me too. And it's not about eating better or exercising more, though those are important. It's about something much deeper, something that creeps up on you slowly. By the time you notice it, the damage is done. I'm talking about letting yourself become isolated, about shutting yourself off from people, about believing that your best days are behind you and that you have nothing left to offer or experience. I've watched this happen to too many of my friends. And let me tell you, it is one of the most dangerous traps of growing older. You see, when you stop connecting with others, your mind begins to shrink. Your heart becomes heavy and your body follows. It's like a slow poison. And the worst part? It feels like the most natural thing to do. Maybe you've lost loved ones along the way. Maybe your children are busy with their own lives. Maybe your health isn't what it used to be. Whatever the reason, it becomes easy to spend more time alone, to watch the days blur together, one after another, in the quiet of your home. But that quiet isn't peaceful. It's suffocating. It's the kind that eats away at you, little by little, until you start to believe that no one would even notice if you weren't here anymore. I know how that feels because I was there. I lost my wife almost 10 years ago. We were married for 52 years. She was my rock. When she passed, it was like someone pulled the ground out from under me. I stopped going out. I stopped calling my friends. I convinced myself that no one wanted to hear from an old man rambling about his aches and pains. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. And before I knew it, years had passed. I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the man staring back at me. My shoulders were hunched. My face was hollow. My eyes were dull. But the worst pain wasn't in my body. It was in my soul. I was lonely in a way that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. Then one day, my grandson came to visit. He was just a teenager then, full of energy and life. He looked me in the eyes and said, "Grandpa, where did you go?" That hit me like a punch to the gut. I realized that while I was still breathing, I had stopped living. That day, I decided to make a change. Not because I felt like it, but because I was tired of feeling dead inside while my heart was still beating. I started small. I went to the park and sat on a bench just to be around people. I forced myself to call an old friend. I joined a book club, even though I wasn't much of a reader. At first, it was awkward. I fell out of place. But slowly, it got easier. The more I showed up, the more I realized how hungry I was for connection, for laughter, for purpose. And you know what? My health started to improve. I was sleeping better. My appetite came back. My energy levels went up. Even my aches and pains seemed to ease. It wasn't a miracle cure. It was the power of human connection, of feeling seen and heard, of being reminded that I was still alive and that my life still mattered. But it wasn't just about getting out of the house. It was about letting people in. I learned to be vulnerable, to share my fears and regrets, to ask for help when I needed it. And that changed everything. Because when you open yourself up, you give others permission to do the same. You create bonds that are stronger than loneliness. If you're over 70 and feeling alone, I'm begging you, do not let it continue. Reach out to someone today. Call an old friend. Join a club. Volunteer at a local charity. Invite your neighbor over for coffee. It doesn't matter what you do as long as you do something. Do not wait for others to come to you. Take the first step. I know it's scary. I know it feels easier to stay where you are. But easy isn't always right. And staying stuck in isolation will only lead you down a dark path. Maybe you're thinking, no one cares about me anymore. But that's a lie. It's the loneliness talking. There are people out there who would love to hear your stories, who would benefit from your wisdom, who would find joy in your company. You are not a burden. You are a treasure chest of experiences and knowledge. You have so much to give, and the world needs you now more than ever. Don't make the mistake of believing that your best days are behind you. As long as you're breathing, there is still life left to live, still laughter to share, still love to give and receive. It won't always be easy. There will be days when you feel tired, when you feel like giving up, when the old loneliness tries to creep back in. But don't let it win. Fight for your joy. Fight for your health. Fight for your life. Looking back now, I see how close I came to wasting the years I had left. How easy it would have been to let grief and loneliness swallow me whole. But I chose to fight. And because of that choice, I have seen my great-grandchildren take their first steps. I have danced at my granddaughter's wedding. I have laughed until my belly hurt with friends who became family. I have lived more fully in these past few years than I ever thought possible. So please, if you're over 70, quit this health mistake now. Quit letting yourself fade away. Quit believing that you're too old for new beginnings. Quit isolating yourself from the people who care about you. Your life is not over. Your story is not finished. There are still chapters left to write, but you have to pick up the pen. You have to decide to live. Not just exist, but truly live. I won't pretend to have all the answers. I'm just an old man who learned the hard way. But if my story can help even one person break free from the grip of loneliness, then it was worth sharing. If you're still here, reading this, then it's not too late for you. Make the call, open the door, take the first step, and keep taking steps one day at a time. I'm not saying it will be easy, but I'm saying it will be worth it. Because life is beautiful, even with all its pain and loss. Even with all its challenges and changes. It is worth fighting for, and so are you. I may not know you personally, but I care about you. I want you to feel alive again. I want you to experience joy and laughter and love. So quit this health mistake now. Quit the isolation. Choose connection. Choose life. Because every heartbeat is a gift. And as long as yours is still beating, there is hope. There is possibility. There is more life to be lived. You are not alone. You are loved. And your story is far from over. How can older adults find meaningful connections without feeling like a burden to others? I know how it feels. That heavy, nagging feeling deep inside. That worry that if you reach out, you'll be a burden. That fear that people are just too busy or that they're only spending time with you out of pity. I felt that way for years. After my wife passed, I pulled away from everyone. I convinced myself that my kids had their own lives to live. That my friends didn't want to hear me ramble on about my aches and pains. I told myself that the world had moved on and left me behind, and that if I tried to reconnect, I'd only be an inconvenience, a burden. But let me tell you something that took me a long time to learn. Those thoughts are lies. They are lies that loneliness whispers in your ear. They are lies that grow louder the longer you isolate yourself. And if you believe them, they will rob you of the joy and connection that you deserve. Yes, deserve. You see, you are not a burden. You are a person with experiences, wisdom, and stories that the world needs to hear. You are someone who can offer kindness, laughter, and friendship. You still have so much to give, but you have to believe that first. You have to believe that your presence is a gift, not a weight on anyone's shoulders. I remember the first time I reached out after years of isolation. My grandson was visiting, and he was just scrolling through his phone like teenagers do. I felt that old fear rise up, the fear that he was only there because his mom made him come. But then I took a deep breath and asked him if he'd teach me how to use that thing. His eyes lit up, and for the next hour, he patiently showed me how to text and send pictures. He even helped me make an account on something called social media. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a burden. I felt connected. I realized then that asking for help isn't a weakness. It's an invitation. It's a way to show someone that you value their knowledge and experience. And most people are happy to share what they know, especially if it means spending time with someone who genuinely cares. The trick is to stop thinking of yourself as a burden and start seeing yourself as a bridge. A bridge that connects generations. A bridge that carries wisdom from the past into the present. When you do that, you stop feeling like you're taking up space and start realizing that you're adding value. So how can you find meaningful connections without feeling like a burden? By giving as much as you receive. And no, I don't mean buying gifts or doing favors. I mean giving your time, your attention, your stories, and your wisdom. When you share your life experiences, you're giving a gift that no one else can. You're giving the gift of perspective, of history, of lessons learned the hard way. I'll never forget the day I joined a local book club. I was nervous, to be honest. I thought, who wants to hear an old man's opinions on books? But I showed up anyway, heart pounding and palms sweaty. And do you know what happened? They welcomed me with open arms. They asked for my thoughts. They listened. They laughed at my jokes. They valued my perspective because it was different, because it was shaped by decades of living. And just like that, I realized that my voice mattered, that I wasn't a burden. I was a contributor. You see, meaningful connections are built on mutual respect and shared experiences. It's not about taking, it's about sharing. When you share your stories, you invite others to share theirs. When you listen, you show that you care. When you open your heart, you give others permission to do the same. That's how real connections are made. But it takes courage. It takes the willingness to be vulnerable, to show up, even when you feel unsure, to reach out, even when you fear rejection, to keep trying, even when it feels awkward at first. One of the most powerful ways to build connections is through volunteering. I started volunteering at a local community center, helping kids with their homework. At first, I worried that I'd be too slow or that the kids wouldn't want to listen to some old guy. But those kids looked up to me. They called me Grandpa Joe and asked me questions about what life was like back in the day. They made me feel needed. They gave me purpose. And in helping them, I healed a part of myself that I didn't even know was broken. If you're worried about feeling like a burden, find a way to serve. There's so many ways to give back. Volunteer at a school. Visit a nursing home. Join a local group that shares your interests. Whether it's gardening, knitting, or playing cards, there's a community out there waiting for you. And when you contribute, you stop feeling like a burden. You feel like you belong, like you matter, because you do. The truth is, people need connection just as much as you do. Loneliness isn't just an old person's problem. It affects people of all ages. And when you reach out, you might just be giving someone else the courage to do the same. You might be helping someone who feels just as lonely as you do. You might be saving a life. So don't let that fear of being a burden hold you back. Don't listen to that voice that says you're too old, too tired, or too unimportant. It's lying to you. You're needed. Your experiences are valuable. Your presence is a gift. The world needs your wisdom, your kindness, and your laughter. But no one can receive that gift if you hide it away. Start small. Make a phone call. Write a letter. Join a club. Volunteer. Smile at a stranger. Strike up a conversation. Show up. Keep showing up. Even when it feels uncomfortable. Even when you're scared. Even when that old voice of doubt tries to pull you back into isolation. Fight it, because the reward is worth it. The friendships you'll make. The memories you'll create. The joy you'll feel. Those are worth every ounce of courage it takes to step out of your comfort zone. I'm not telling you this because I read it in a book. I'm telling you this because I lived it. Because I was once that lonely old man who thought he was a burden. And I was wrong. If I could go back and change anything, I would have reached out sooner. I would have asked for help sooner. I would have believed that I mattered sooner. But I can't change my past. I can only share my story in the hope that it will help you change your future. What community resources or activities are most effective in helping seniors reconnect? I remember the first time I walked into the local senior center. I almost turned around and went home. I felt awkward and out of place. But then a woman named Mary walked up to me with the warmest smile and said, "Come on, we need one more player for bingo." Just like that, I was included. I laughed more that afternoon than I had in months. I realized then that senior centers are more than just buildings. They are lifelines. They offer a place to gather, to laugh, to share stories, and to feel seen. They have activities for every interest, from card games to dance classes. I even joined a yoga class, which did wonders for my stiff joints. And the best part? I made friends. Real friends who checked on me if I missed a day. Friends who understood what it felt like to be alone and who were just as eager to reconnect. Churches are another incredible resource. I'll admit, I was hesitant at first. I thought I'd feel out of place because I hadn't been to church in years. But when I finally went, I was welcomed with open arms. It wasn't just about religion. It was about community, about finding a place where people care about each other. I joined a Bible study group, and it became more than just reading scripture. It was a safe space to share, to listen, and to learn. I also volunteered at the church's food pantry, packing boxes for families in need. Giving back gave me purpose. It reminded me that I still had something to offer, that my time and effort mattered. And through that, I found a deeper connection with people who share my values and my desire to make a difference. One of the most surprising ways I reconnected was by joining a local walking group. I wasn't sure about it at first. I thought I'd be too slow, that I'd hold people back. But it turned out to be one of the best decisions I ever made. We met at the park twice a week, and we walked and talked. Sometimes we'd laugh. Sometimes we'd vent about life's challenges. And sometimes we'd just walk in comfortable silence, enjoying the fresh air. Those walks did more than keep me active. They gave me something to look forward to. They made me feel alive again. Libraries are another hidden gem for seniors. I rediscovered my love for books by joining a book club at the local library. I thought it would just be about discussing plots and characters, but it became so much more. We shared our thoughts, our memories, our experiences. We connected over stories that reminded us of our own lives. And in those discussions, I realized that my voice still mattered, that my opinions were valued. The library also offered free workshops, from learning how to use a computer to crafting classes. I even learned how to send emails to my grandchildren, which made me feel more connected to them despite the miles between us. I also found great joy in volunteering. It's a powerful way to reconnect because it shifts your focus from yourself to others. I started volunteering at a local elementary school, helping kids with their reading. I was worried at first, thinking they wouldn't relate to an old man like me. But those kids became my teachers. They showed me how to see the world with fresh eyes. They made me laugh. They made me feel needed. And they reminded me that age doesn't define your worth, that you can make a difference at any stage of life. Technology can be intimidating, but it's worth learning. Once I got the hang of it, I joined an online community for veterans. It was incredible to connect with people who understood my past, who shared my memories and my struggles. I found comfort in those virtual conversations, and it made me realize that community isn't just about physical spaces. It's about finding people who get you, who see you, who value you. If you're feeling isolated, I urge you to reach out. It's scary, I know. It's easier to stay at home, to stay in your routine. But nothing changes if you don't take that first step. Start small. Visit your local senior center. Go to the library. Join a walking group. Volunteer. Attend a community event. Even if it feels uncomfortable at first, keep showing up. It gets easier, and before you know it, you'll find your people. You'll find your place. You might be thinking, I'm too old for this. It's too late for me. I thought that too, but I was wrong. It's never too late. You still have so much life left to live, so many stories left to tell, so many laughs left to share. And there are people out there who need you just as much as you need them. People who will be better because they met you. Don't let fear or pride hold you back. Don't let that voice in your head tell you that you're a burden or that no one cares. It's lying to you. People care. People need connection just as much as you do. And the only way to find them is to step out of your comfort zone and into your community. If I had stayed home that day instead of going to the senior center, I would have missed out on so much joy. I would have missed out on friendships, on laughter, on feeling alive again. But I took a chance. I showed up, and it changed my life. How can family members and friends help loved ones over 70 overcome isolation? The first and most important thing they can do is to show up. I cannot stress this enough. It is not about grand gestures or elaborate plans. It is about presence, about letting your loved one know they are not forgotten, that they are still part of your life. I remember when my granddaughter started visiting every Sunday. She would bring her kids, and the house would be filled with laughter and chaos. Those afternoons became the highlight of my week, not because of anything special we did, but because they were there, because they made me feel like I still mattered, that I was still part of the family. It is not just about showing up in person, though. A phone call can mean the world. Just hearing a familiar voice can chase away the loneliness. I used to think I was bothering my kids by calling them. But then my son told me he actually looked forward to my calls, that they reminded him to slow down and appreciate the moment. So I stopped worrying about being a burden, and I started calling more often. Another powerful way to help is to listen. Really listen. When you get older, people tend to talk at you instead of with you. They give advice. They make decisions for you. They assume they know what's best. But sometimes, all we want is someone to listen, to let us share our memories, our worries, our hopes, I remember once telling my daughter about my childhood. I expected her to brush it off as old stories. But she leaned in, asked questions, and listened with genuine interest. I felt seen, heard, understood, and in that moment, I didn't feel alone. Including your loved one in family activities is another way to bridge the gap of isolation. I know it is easy to assume they won't be interested or that it would be too much trouble, but even small gestures can mean so much. My family started inviting me to my grandson's soccer games. At first, I thought I'd just be in the way, but watching him play, cheering from the sidelines, and celebrating with him afterward made me feel alive again. I felt connected. I felt like I belonged. And those outings gave us memories we will both carry for a lifetime. If distance is an issue, technology can be a great help. I know it can be intimidating at first. When my daughter bought me a tablet, I almost gave it back. It seemed too complicated, but she patiently taught me how to use it. And now, I video call my great-grandkids who live states away. I get to see their faces, watch them grow. I even learned how to send text messages and share pictures. It made me feel relevant, like I was still part of their lives, even from afar. If you want to help a loved one feel connected, take the time to teach them how to use technology. Be patient, encourage them, and most importantly, keep reaching out, even if they seem hesitant at first. Helping them find purpose is another powerful way to combat isolation. When you get older, it is easy to feel like you have outlived your usefulness, that you're just taking up space. But purpose doesn't end with retirement. It just changes shape. My daughter encouraged me to volunteer at the local library, reading to children. At first, I didn't think anyone would care about an old man telling stories. But those kids hung on to every word. They laughed at my voices. They asked for more. And in giving my time, I found a new sense of purpose. I felt needed again, like I still had something to offer the world. Sometimes the simplest acts of kindness have the biggest impact. A handwritten letter, a surprise visit, a meal shared at the kitchen table. I remember when my neighbor started bringing over homemade soup every Wednesday. She called it Soup Wednesdays. It became a tradition. We would sit, eat, and talk about everything and nothing. It was such a small thing, but it made me feel less alone. It made me feel cared for. Encouraging hobbies and interests can also help. I used to love gardening, but I gave it up when it became too difficult to manage alone. But my son surprised me one weekend by building raised garden beds that were easier to reach. We planted tomatoes and flowers together. And just like that, I was back to doing something I loved. It gave me a reason to get up in the morning, a reason to go outside, a reason to keep going. I know life is busy. I know it is easy to get caught up in the daily grind. But don't forget about the people who raised you, who loved you, who made sacrifices so you could have a better life. They're still here, still waiting, still hoping to be part of your world. If you have an older loved one who is feeling isolated, reach out, call them, visit them, listen to them, include them, encourage them. It doesn't take much, just a little time, a little effort, a little love. What inspiring stories or examples show the power of reconnecting later in life? Let me tell you a few stories that show just how powerful reconnecting can be no matter how many years have passed. I remember my old friend, George. He was a stubborn man, set in his ways, and fiercely independent. After his wife passed away, he shut himself off from the world. He convinced himself that he didn't need anyone, but the loneliness caught up to him. I could see it in his eyes, even though he would never admit it. One day, out of the blue, he received a letter. It was from his childhood friend, Samuel, who he hadn't spoken to in over 50 years. They had grown up together, inseparable, but life took them in different directions. Samuel's letter was simple. He wrote about his memories of their youth, how he missed their fishing trips, and how he wished they could talk again. I watched George wrestle with his pride, his hesitation. But eventually, he picked up the phone and called Samuel. They spoke for hours. It was like no time had passed at all. The laughter, the stories, the memories flooded back. Soon enough, they were meeting up for coffee every week. I watched as George came back to life. He smiled more. He laughed more. He even started fixing up his old fishing gear. They took one last fishing trip together, just like the old days. George told me it felt like he had gotten a piece of his youth back. That one reconnection gave him a sense of purpose again. It reminded him that he wasn't alone, that he was still loved. Then there was Mary, sweet, gentle Mary. She spent years caring for her husband as his health declined. When he passed, she was lost. Her days felt long and empty. She had no children, no close family nearby. She was adrift, isolated in her grief. But life had other plans. One afternoon, while sorting through old letters, she found a Christmas card from her high school sweetheart, Frank. They had lost touch after graduation, each going on to live their own lives. On a whim, she decided to write him a letter. She poured her heart out, not really expecting a reply. To her surprise, Frank wrote back. His handwriting was shaky but heartfelt. They exchanged letters for months, sharing stories of their lives, their joys, and their sorrows. Eventually, they decided to meet. I will never forget the way Mary's eyes sparkled when she told me about that first reunion. She said it was like stepping back in time, like they were teenagers again. They spent hours reminiscing, laughing, and even shedding a few tears. They became each other's companions, filling the void that loneliness had left behind. It was a beautiful reminder that it is never too late to reconnect. That love and friendship can find you at any age, even when you least expect it. And then there's my own story. I lost touch with my younger brother, Tom, after a family disagreement that lasted decades. Our pride kept us apart. We were both too stubborn to reach out, even though we missed each other terribly. As the years went by, the distance grew, and so did the pain. But one day, I received a call from his daughter. Tom had fallen ill, and he asked to see me. I was nervous, ashamed of the years we lost, but I went. When I walked into that hospital room and saw him lying there, looking frail and tired, all the anger melted away. I remembered the boy who used to follow me around, who looked up to me, who shared my childhood. We talked for hours about everything and nothing. We laughed about the silly fights we had as kids. We cried for the time we lost. We forgave each other. In that room, surrounded by the hum of machines, we reconnected. And it was the most healing experience of my life. I realized that time is precious, that the people we love are worth fighting for, even if it means swallowing our pride. Tom passed away a few months later, but I am forever grateful that we found our way back to each other before it was too late. I have learned that reconnecting is not just about reliving old memories. It is about creating new ones. It is about healing, forgiving, and loving. It is about realizing that no matter how many years have passed, the bond you shared is still there, waiting to be rekindled. It is about understanding that people grow and change, but the heart remembers. I have seen neighbors reconnect after decades of silence, becoming each other's lifelines in old age. I have seen old friends reunited by chance, discovering they were exactly what the other needed in that season of life. I have seen families heal, bridging gaps that seemed insurmountable. These stories are proof that it is never too late to reconnect, that even in the twilight years, relationships can blossom, that the heart has an infinite capacity for love and forgiveness. I share these stories because I want you to know that you are not alone, that it is okay to reach out, even if it feels uncomfortable or vulnerable, that the person on the other end might be waiting for you too. If there is someone you have lost touch with, someone you miss, someone you think about late at night, take the first step. Pick up the phone, write a letter, send a message. You never know how powerful that reconnection can be. It could change your life. It could heal old wounds. It could fill your days with laughter and love. It could remind you that no matter how old you are, you still matter. You are still loved. You are still here. Why is it never too late to quit this health mistake and start living fully again, no matter your age? I have made my fair share of mistakes. I was stubborn, set in my ways, and convinced that I was invincible. I used to smoke like a chimney, thinking it made me look sophisticated. I did not pay much attention to what I ate. I was too busy living in the moment to worry about the future. But the future comes whether you are ready or not. I paid the price for my choices with aching joints, shortness of breath, and nights spent staring at the ceiling, wondering if it was too late to turn things around. I was 75 when I finally decided to quit smoking. It was not easy. My hands would shake, and and I would get irritable. I almost gave up a dozen times. But then I thought about my grandchildren. I thought about all the moments I still wanted to be there for. Their birthdays, their graduations, their weddings. I wanted to dance at their weddings, not just watch from the sidelines. That thought kept me going. And do you know what happened? My body started healing. Slowly but surely, my breathing got easier. I started walking more, moving more. I began to feel alive again. You see, the body is an incredible thing. It is resilient, forgiving, and capable of healing itself if you just give it the chance. Even at 75, my lungs started to recover. My energy levels went up. My mood improved. I started sleeping better. It was like a fog had lifted. I could finally see how much I had been missing out on. And it was all because I chose to quit that health mistake and give my body the care it deserved. I met a woman named Helen at the community center. She was in her early 80s and used to walk with a cane because of severe arthritis. She loved sweets, especially pastries, and she could not go a day without them. But her weight was making her pain worse. Her doctor warned her that she was at risk of diabetes. She was scared but also convinced that it was too late to change her eating habits. "I'm too old to start eating healthy now," she would say. "What difference will it make?" But Helen was wrong. She decided to give a try after her grandson asked her to dance at a school event. She wanted to be there for him, to hold his hand and sway to the music, even if just for a little while. She started small, cutting back on sweets little by little. She replaced pastries with fruit, started drinking more water, and joined a gentle exercise class for seniors. At first, she struggled. She craved sugar, felt tired, and almost gave up. But she kept picturing that dance with her grandson, and it kept her going. A year later, I saw her at the community center, standing tall without her cane. She had lost weight, her pain was more manageable, and she had a sparkle in her eye that I had never seen before. She told me how she danced with her grandson, how he twirled her around, and how they both laughed until their bellies hurt. She was glowing with joy. She looked at me and said, "I never thought I could feel this good again. I wish I had done it sooner." That is the thing. It is never too late to quit a health mistake and start living fully again. I have seen people in their 90s start exercising, people in their 80s learn to cook healthier meals, and people in their 70s give up habits they thought they could never break. Every single one of them found new energy, new joy, and a new lease on life. They started traveling, dancing, gardening, and reconnecting with loved ones. They realized that their age did not define them. Their choices did. If you are reading this and thinking that it is too late for you, I want you to know that it is not. Whether you're 70, 80, or even 90, you can still change your story. You can still quit that health mistake that is weighing you down. It might be smoking, overeating, drinking too much, not exercising, or letting stress consume you. Whatever it is, you have the power to let it go and start living fully again. Yes, it will be hard. Change is never easy, especially when you have been set in your ways for decades. You will have days when you feel weak, tired, and ready to give up. But remember why you are doing it. Remember the people who love you, the moments you still want to be a part of, the dreams you still carry in your heart. Hold on to those reasons and let them give you strength. I am 82 now, and I feel more alive than I did in my 50s. I walk every morning, eat fresh food, and spend time laughing with my grandchildren. I'm not just surviving, I am living. And it all started when I decided to quit that health mistake that was holding me back. I stopped believing the lie that it was too late and chose to believe in the power of change. So if you're standing at crossroads, wondering if you should make that change, take it from an old man who has been there. Do it. Quit that health mistake. Give yourself the chance to live fully again. Your body will thank you. Your heart will thank you. Your loved ones will thank you. And one day, you will look back and realize that it was the best decision you ever made. Because it is never too late to start living. It is never too late to change your story. If you like today's discussion, don't forget to like the video. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to stay updated with every video we release. And yes, don't forget to share your experiences and thoughts in the comments. Every comment is special to us. Your feedback helps us improve further. We'll continue to meet you in every new video on this channel. So until next time, take care.